Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, meathead. But the kids don't even know the right words. Margot used LOA. There is no such a thing as LOA. I mean, Josh Kim says on one of the interviews, I didn't know the difference between debt and equity until the 5th month after the seminar. He called up a cousin of his that works for Morgan Stanley. You don't have to know debt. You don't have to know a motherfucking thing. I mean it from the bottom of my heart, if I have a heart, or where the heart's supposed to go. Nothing. And that's hard for you won't accept it. You just don't. When I tell people I didn't know enough to put on the end of a pencil about oil and gas, nobody believes me. Now I know a lot, 35 years later. But Steve Jobs used to say, don't confuse me with the fucking facts. You know, I didn't realize how fucking germane, what a enlightened genius he was. Whereas you're confused with the facts. Some of you in this room have spent years researching me before you came here. Years. It's certainly not that I wrote 1,000 books or 1,000 articles. I don't know what you spent years studying. Really, you spent years building up your self-confidence. And you still are the way you are, which is pretty scary. Okay, comments. About Tan. He's in a little suburb, not a suburb, a little provincial area in Canada. And he comes in. Now, when a regular person comes into, that's his office there, comes into his office and he sees Hitler, Mussolini. They may recognize George Patton. They may not. They're floored. They're floored. Mussolini was a little too wishy-washy for me. He was a little too Italian for me. But he's a little too Italian. But notwithstanding, I'm part Sicilian. But as the Sicilian gangster once told me, you're never part of Sicilian. Meaning that part is better than none. So, comments about the carpenter, basically. Of course, Jesus was a carpenter, I think, But that is about the only thing that he can, he was just a grunt. The grunt. One of the most difficult things to get over is when they ask you, what did you do before this? Then, not normally, but many times you go into shock. Because, Peña said, I built all this shit up. Perception is reality. And then the asshole asked me what the fuck I did before. Now, for some of you got a reasonably legitimate answer. But some of you in this room don't have reasonably legitimate answers, and you know who I'm referring to. And in the templates, we've got answers. But he is one of the few guys that has read the templates in recent years that, and it's in there, when he says, well, when the banks and the accountants and the lawyers start asking you hard questions, well, that's premature. We don't even know each other. We're not even sure whether, there's any synergism to work together. That's in there, but he's one of the few guys that picked it out. I can't stand over you. Oh, you missed out, So that's why treat all the information you get like it's the 10 Commandments. Moses brought it down from the fucking mount. Because there are kernels of genius in every line. But he's one of the only guys that, the last 4 or 5 years, that pulled that out and uses it. It's in the scripts. It's in the templates. Yes, sir.
He says all the board members are retired apart from one. So would that make them all non-executive board members?
No. Just because they're retired doesn't mean they won't be an executive board member. You can get a guy that's 30 years retired from KPMG, accounting firm, to be your executive director or CFO. But you're going to have 2 accountants on the board. you're going to have a guy that's a CFO. They're not always 100% accountants, but normally 98% of the time, your CFO is going to be an accountant from a big accounting firm. But you're going to have a backup accountant on the board. The only thing you don't have a backup of, you don't have a backup lawyer. You have one lawyer, and a lot of the kids, and now because with Josh firing so many board members, and remember these boards are in transition. The same board you have at $5 million is not going to be the same board you have at $50 million. Rarely does that happen. Once in a while it happens, but rarely. So it's a board in transition, and they're going to walk away with that equity. So I mean, but remember, right now you got 100% of nothing, most of you. So now, even if you give 40 or 45% away, you're still going to have 60% of something. And I liken it to Monopoly. Most of us have played Monopoly before. You know, you land on Park Street, you got to pay rent. I mean, it's Monopoly money. Now, I don't want you to use it like in a frivolous way because it doesn't mean anything, but it's not your money. And all the fees that you're going to pay. And remember, Margot said, you know, even though the law firm was a little pricey, well, but, you know, and I on a Zoom call, I slapped her around and said, well, you're not paying for the fucking thing, so what are you worrying about? You cheap fucking Parisian? You're not paying because you're financing all the transaction fees. So it doesn't make a fuck what they charge you. At some level, it does make a fuck. But it doesn't matter what they charge you. And it's a completely foreign, I can just look at your face. It's a completely foreign concept to you. Most of you don't use world-class lawyers is because it's $2-3 grand an hour. Minimum. An hour. You want to get your cousin, your fifth cousin on your divorcee that charges you $195 an hour. And that's what kind of advice you'll get too. And the best time to get these guys and gals is, remember I talked about they feathering their nest 6 to 24 months before they retire. Most of the big firms give you time. Okay, half of your time is going to be billable. Half of your time is going to be building your future. But only the big firms can afford to do that. If you got a 5-man law firm, you can't tell the senior partner who's going to retire, half your time is not billable now. Half your time is going to be providing for your future. But with the big firms, they can do that. Yep.
Yes. When seeking a success fees-oriented agreement, what percentage in premiums are they?
Sometimes it's a 5% premium, sometimes a 10%. I pay 200% of billable hours. So the normal, this is $500 an hour, I'll pay $1,000 an hour financed on success basis. Doesn't matter. As long as cash flow covers motherfucking debt service, including the expense of the fees. Most of your deals, and when I looked at your deals, I don't know how you make a living looking at the models. I mean, because P.T. Barnum was right, there's a fucking moron born every minute. There must be a sucker born for some of you that have these online models. Jesus Christ, the people are more stupid than I thought. I don't know how you pay your bills. I just don't. In general. Aren't people smarter than the answer is people aren't smarter than that. Valentine's Day already passed, right? Yeah. Okay. A lot of the gurus had Valentine's Day sales. I can't even say it without laughing. 50% off! Well, what was the shit worth the day before Valentine's Day? Christmas sales. Summer sales. What the fuck? It costs, I went from the most expensive product online, $5,000 for a DVD. It used to cost me 7 cents to produce. A DVD based from the 90s, and I hadn't said those words in 20 years. And the reason why the shit hasn't changed is because nothing's changed in our world except one thing, crowdfunding. That is the only new vehicle today that wasn't 25, 30 years ago. It's the only thing that's different, crowdfunding. And we've got guys, I mentioned it at the one day, Marcus Bauer has set the world's record crowdfunded deal, 2 minutes and 32 seconds. I think I mentioned it at the seminar. If I didn't, I should have. 2 minutes and 32 seconds. He holds a new record for a completed crowdfunding deal. But other than crowdfunding, nothing's new. And so that's why the product that was germane in the 90s and early 2000s is still germane. Now, in the book, I've updated it a year and a half ago. The audio version of your first 100 million is right on, up with the times. Yes, sir.
If you employ an accounting company or a lawyer or a law company, do you use them for all the work? So, for instance, if you have simple labor contracts?
Well, when you have some of the big firms, they have everything. They've got soup to nuts. Someplace within the law firm and someplace within the accounting firm, they will have labor, law, they will cover everything.
Yeah, but it's really necessary. So you are employing, I don't know, maybe a secretary and making an employment of maybe 3,000 euros, and then you're paying, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, a secretary paying 3,000 euros is not going to, cover all your labor law obligations and keep up with. I mean, that's just not. That's why she gets paid 3,000 euros a month.
Yeah, that's right. But the question is, do you really need such a big law?
Yes, the answer is yes.
You take them for everything.
Yes, your cheapness and stupidity showing through your glasses. But I mean, most people think just exactly how he's saying, and it's wrong.
Also,
it's wrong.
Just the general accounting world, just the general.
No. Because when you come in with KPMG stationery, not their stationery, when they're on your stationery, you're just a cheap little fuck, and you list KPMG and blah, and now you're somebody, and they give you the benefit of the doubt, and that's what. The kids, I don't like the way they say they fake it till we make it. I don't like that. But perception is reality. You are judged by who you keep company with professionally.
But maybe let them do the due diligence work.
Yeah, well, I mean, in 5 years, you tell me how your program's worked out, okay? I know what my program worked out. Your program hasn't worked out based on your rationale so far, has it?
Not to the standards I want.
No, don't give me any fucking excuse. It hasn't, so I'm not interested in your fucking opinion. How have your program's been working out the way you've been doing it? I rest my fucking case. Any other questions about our Vietnamese gangbanger shootout expert? Yes.
So when he did the meetings, he was in the meetings alone, or did he have some?
No. Okay, it's ahead. But since he brought it up, I want to answer it. Okay. You start out at the 200th largest accounting firm, and you've practiced, and you'll know when you're good enough to make to the next level. Okay. We've had guys give 25, 30, 40 presentations to accounting firms before they try the Big Ten. But most of you, the communication skills, as Warren Buffett said earlier this morning, suck. So when your communication skills are not in the suck mode, you bring your CFO, who's a retired Big Four accountant, with you. But all those practicing ones, you don't bring you'll wear out your poor board. And you're going to have, everybody's got one or two board members who likes to go to meetings. They can only play golf so much. They can only bounce their grandkids so much on their knee, but don't wear them out. Those are jewels, because you have workhorses. But you don't wear them out, and you don't bring the chairman to the meeting unless it's the shit has hit the fan. It's the big fucking make or break meeting. You don't bring the old fart out of the stable. You don't saddle him up or her up. But you ride hard the CFO, you ride hard the CEO if you're not the CEO, and you ride hard the industry experts. You don't ride hard as much the lawyer on the board. The lawyer on the board is making phone calls, telling the big law firms, what we need. The accountant and the CFO on the board are calling and making conversations with the big accounting firms. But you have to brief when you take your CFO, who's been with KPMG 35 years. He's used to looking at things from 35,000 feet. He's not a micro guy. He's a macro guy. Okay. We have templates, and this is what we're going to talk about. You know how when you ask a politician a question, they've only got 5 talking points. No matter what the question is, it's the same fucking answer. We've only got 6 talking points. And it's one of those 6 fucking answers, or there's no answer. And you got to show that to your CFO. This is our scope of knowledge. We don't talk about anything else. And once in a while, you'll have a hard time, cajoling. You do it in a friendly way. Now, I didn't do it in a friendly way, but you'll do it in a friendly way to start with. But then you'll go into a meeting. We had a big deal with HSBC collapse because the CFO starts pontificating about, last time I was with a startup, it went bankrupt. Now, why in God's name would you say that? Because you didn't explain it to him. And it's not the CFO's fault. It's your fault for not briefing him right. These are the 6 things we talk about, old timer. I don't give a fuck what the question is. What time is it? It's one of those 6 answers. Do you think the Yankees are going to win the World Series? It's one of those motherfucking 6 answers. That's it. And you have those 6 answers in your templates. And as soon as the French bitch went back to the templates, it worked. Funny enough, as she says. A lot more stupid people have used those templates and a lot smarter people have used those templates. And they work for everybody. From Forrest Gump up to Einstein. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel with this program. There was another question. Yes, sir, in the back.
He talked about backup board members.
Yes.
How do you organize the dynamic?
Okay, like he said, he's got, he didn't say, but Ray, the kid, the 17-year-old kid. He's got 2 or 3 guys back for each position. And part of because the kids, even though we've only got a couple of real kids in the room, you're going to make mistakes on who you pick because you have nothing to base it on vis-a-vis experience. But once you get a chairman and a CEO, then you're going to have their input. The hardest for the beginners, not just for the kids, but for all, is the chairman. And you want somebody to be the absolute antithesis of you. The opposite of you. If your deal works so well, you wouldn't be here. We want the opposite of you. Now, he can still be an introvert like you, but the opposite. You don't want, that you agree on 8 or 10 things in life. That's not who you want. You want the opposite. And the most important thing is transaction experience. You should, with a board of 7 or 8, easily have 300 or 400 transactions amongst the group. Easily. If you don't, something's not right. Now, one of the guys last year, he got the guy that graduated number 1 in his class at Harvard MBA, 8 years out of business school, done four deals in 8 years. Next. I don't care if he was, he graduated, next to Christ. 4 deals in 8 years is not acceptable, especially when you graduate number 1 in your class from the Harvard Business School. Something's wrong. There's a disconnect there, and it's not your job to find the disconnect. You don't give a shit. Just, there's a disconnect. Next. But a guy that graduated number 1 in his class at Harvard Business School would have gone, he would have started at $500,000 a year, and he would have gone with one of the big hedge funds or Blackstone, and in 8 years, he would have been in 50, 60 deals. But there's something not right with the guy. Something's not right. If you have an audit partner from KPMG or Deloitte, and he's got 35 years experience, and he has not been in but a handful of deals, there are ways to get up the management ladder, not transaction oriented. We want transaction people. And it's not a story, it's the truth. I stopped counting at 700 deals. I'm well over 2,000 now, but I stopped counting at 700. Because the bottom line is, who would you rather have? Somebody that had read 700 books or done 700 deals? Yes, sir.
You talk about in your book and past seminars, doofus test and private investigators to make a smarter choice on your board.
Well, I had 2 full-time private investigators on my in my company because I was having due diligence done. Because when we're buying companies, I was researching all their board members. Okay, for example, whoever the last, other than me, you can do it for me. Type in whoever the last seminar you went to, Jones, and put lawsuit next to it, and then hit the send button on Google. See, you're only looking at the information in the first couple pages. You put down whatever the name is, plus lawsuit. You want to have some real fun, put their name and then type in pedophile. There's 5 or 6 guys on the tour right now that are pedophiles. Bona fide pedophiles. And I'll bet you £1 million at least one of you have been to their seminars. But you never typed their name and then typed in pedophile, did you? You can type my name in all day long next to pedophile. Other than I beat a few up in my allegedly. I beat a few up, allegedly. Dan drug him across it was alleged. Court records, documents say, on the subject of 1987, Peña drugged the perpetrator, the guy across the table, and hit him with a water vase, allegedly. But I'm an unindicted co-conspirator. Means I had a good lawyer. And let's say you got a guy from, when you see guys that have been with 2 or 3 of the big 4 accounting firms, Deloitte, KPMG, and PwC, something's not right. Type in their name, lawsuit. Type in their name, and it'll spit out that he left PwC because he was an unindicted co-conspirator. If he was unindicted co-conspirator, it doesn't mean he was not guilty. It just means he had a good lawyer. And one of the questions, and it's in the script, that you ask the potential board member is there, at the end, just before you're getting ready to shake hands and say goodbye, is there anything else in your background or in your history that may preclude us from getting the financing, from commercial financing? And this will be when their answer is, head goes down, that's a universal next. Yes, sir.
The big 4 companies as professional service firms have now also legal departments.
Oh, yeah, you want to separate. You don't want the law firm, the lawyer to be with the big 4. You want it separated. Good question. You want them separated. Because even though they're supposed to be Chinese walls, there aren't. Chinese wall meaning you can have the same firm represent both sides, and they're not supposed to share information. And that's not human nature.
So you take a Freshfields for the lawyers and maybe
absolutely Freshfields. When Freshfields used to represent me, they used to say we act for. That's how they say it here. We act for the Queen of England, the Bank of England, the Church of England, and Dan Peña. Which was true. I like them to say Dan Peña than the Queen, but they didn't do that. And they had been acting for the Queen since 1713. And then you don't have to explain. When they, like they have a golden circle law firms here, there's 7 or 8 law firms, the big law firms. When you're represented by one of those, they don't have any questions. They're hard to get. I'm not saying they just fall down and the But I mean, when Freshfields, Allen and Overy, Linkletters, those kind of firms, I mean, they're just, they're beyond reproach. I mean, they're just, they're the best there is. And you can get them. You can get them. And but they charge 50% more than everybody else, if not more. But you get what you pay for. Because they presume that when you have Freshfields or Allen and Overy or Linkletters for a law firm, they presume that you are accepted into the club and for them to act for you, and that's what they represent you, because you are somebody or you're going to be somebody. Because the bank doesn't ask you, are they acting on a delayed fee basis? If I was a banker, I would. But they don't ask you that. Any bankers, you should put that on your checklist to ask the meatheads. If it's a delay, they're being represented on a delayed fee basis. We've had bankers, senior bankers, come through the seminar over the years that can't believe the information you get. They don't, it's beyond their comprehension. You know what the average bank manager in the UK, how many calls he gets a year? 25,000. Who, by their instruction book, who do you think that bank man, that poor fucker that's down on the high street in Manchester at Barclays, who in their playbook or their instruction book do they answer of the 25,000 calls? The greasy wheel, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The guy that called 85 times is who they answer first. You call a bank a couple times and they don't answer your call and you forget about it. I used to call them hundreds of, Bruce Whipple and I back in the day, correct me, Bruce, I know you watch this, you were calling Kraft, I think, the CFO at Kraft. And he answered Bruce's phone call on the 100th call. The 100th time. It wasn't an accident that asshole answered it on the 100th. I've called people, one of the questions you're going to think of, when is it being too pushy? Too forceful? Everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay. Never. I've chased bankers down the street, running from me. I have parked my car in the the driveway, so they couldn't get into their garage. The first question out of his mouth, how did you find out where I lived? Just lucky, I guess. His name was Jim. Just lucky, I guess, Jim. It's 5 a.m. How long you been here? Well, your wife brought me off coffee at 11:30, but I didn't think it was right for me to be in the house with you not there, which is a true story. Had a good-looking wife, though. If I wasn't there for business, not that kind of business, but I mean, that business was a hell of a lot more important than when she came in her they call them dressing gowns here. She was a good-looking bitch, though. And, but I at his house, outside, 6 hours. Any other questions about or comments about TAN or in general? Okay. Thank you, Kat. Any death threats? No? See, the people are getting pussies. They can't even get a decent death threat anymore.